detection of the snipers, as well as at the Metropolitan Police, who had fired at them 2 blocks away. The local media coverage of this event showed the Chavez supporters firing from the bridge and then showed the street where people had been hit in the head by snipers, manipulating the footage to make it appear that the Chavez supporters had fired these lethal shots. The media would also say that Chavez himself had ordered these shootings and used this as justification for the coup, which was already in progress.
In the end, this is what triggered the overthrow of Hugo Chavez. Armed gangs loyal to the Venezuelan president firing on thousands of anti-government protesters. After 16 people were killed and hundreds wounded, last night soldiers surrounded the presidential palace. Mr. President, I was loyal to you, the head of the army said on national television, but the killing of Venezuelans today was intolerable.
I was actually down below the bridge at the time and saw that the street was completely empty when the shooting was going on. When I got home and saw CNN and other news media reporting this, I was really shocked.
Comenzó a disparar y un muchacho que estaba aquí con nosotros fue herido en la cabeza.
De ese hotel que está aquí arriba, de ese hotel disparaban los francotiradores para este puente que está aquí atrás. En este puente disparaban a las personas que estaban montadas arriba.
It's a coup d'etat. They are saying that it's not a coup d'etat. It was a coup d'etat. He was taken into prison by the army.
Yo le vi el rostro a la muerte. Estuvieron a punto de matarme. Allí, fusiles apuntando por delante, por detrás, y yo discutiendo con ellos, recordando al Che Guevara, que dicen que murió de pie. Y yo por dentro diciendo, no voy a implorar perdón, ni clemencia, voy a morir parado.
Much of the U.S. media welcomed the coup. The New York Times editorial board wrote, "Venezuelan democracy is no longer threatened by a would-be dictator." This reference to Chavez ignored the irony of what was actually taking place at the hands of a real dictator.
Se suspende de sus cargos a los diputados principales y suplentes a la Asamblea Nacional. Se destituyen de sus cargos ilegítimamente ocupados al presidente y demás magistrados del Tribunal Supremo de Justicia, al defensor del pueblo y a los miembros del Consejo Nacional Electoral.
Y dirigentes de Acción Democrática introdujeron ante el Tribunal Supremo de Justicia una declaratoria de insanía mental del presidente de la República, teniente coronel Hugo Chávez Frías.
Media in Venezuela became essentially a part of the opposition in the months leading up to the coup. That is, they were actively participating and supporting the opposition. And of course, I'm talking about the private media, which is most of the media in Venezuela. And what they were doing essentially was to broadcast every single opposition statement that was made. Many analysts even said afterwards that this was the first media coup, and actually one of the main participants in the coup even said that we have the media to thank for this coup.
Gracias Televen, gracias CMT, gracias Globovisión, gracias medios de comunicación.
La ex candidata presidencial Irene Sáez exhortó a la comunidad internacional a participar en esa transición.
Hoy yo estoy pidiendo al gobierno de los Estados Unidos y a todas las Naciones Unidas y a la OEA que la OEA enjuicie este proceso criminal en Venezuela, que han matado gente inocente y que todos nuestros gobiernos apoyen el proceso democrático verdadero que vive hoy el país.
The IMF, usually slow in responding to genuine requests for aid from starving Africa, was quick off the mark to demonstrate its support for the coup.
I hope that these discussions could continue with the new administration, and we stand ready to assist the new administration in whatever manner they find suitable.
The aim was straightforward. The IMF was making it clear to the world that the toppling of Chavez was in the interests of global capitalism.
And there's reason why Washington is almost certainly smiling.
We import more oil from Venezuela than any other OPEC nations.
Oil prices dropped sharply today with Chavez's departure.
The reason why prices are coming down so dramatically, more than likely, whoever replaces Chavez is going to be a lot more friendly to United States interests than this previous president was.
Tú preguntas por qué no me mataron. Me mandaron a matar. Solo que yo soy un soldado. Yo pasé media vida en la Fuerza Armada y los militares venezolanos, sobre todo los más jóvenes, me ven como su líder.
But as news spread of what had happened, the poor dramatically marched to the palace in huge numbers.
Yo voté por Chávez y yo quiero que Chávez termine su mandato, porque si esto es democracia, debe dársele respeto a las leyes.
And soldiers even told their officers that they would not back the coup.
Se cerraron y me protegieron. Y luego me rescataron en la isla los paracaidistas con los helicópteros. Yo soy líder paracaidista y allá fueron mis paracaidistas. Y me trajeron otra vez al palacio, rodeado de pueblo.
Carmona had to flee the palace.
El cardenal llegó al sitio donde me tenían, a la isla, a pedirme que firmara la renuncia. Y es porque desde Washington estaban pidiendo la renuncia firmada. Le dije, vamos a rezar, le dije, vamos a rezar porque vienen a rescatarme. Se asustó. Estando él ahí, llegaban los paracaidistas. Y luego yo me lo traje a él en el mismo helicóptero. Le dije, venga. Sí, me dijo, vamos a rezar, presidente.
Why did they do such a lousy job of it? It was a dinky coup. I mean, why didn't they kill him when they had him? It wasn't heavyweight, you know, the way they did it, compared to Guatemala and Chile and Argentina.
La Venezuela del año 2000, 2002, no es la Guatemala del 54, no es el Chile del 73. Esto es una revolución, yo lo he dicho, pacífica, pero armada.
El ejército venezolano forjador de libertades está con su pueblo. ¡Viva el presidente! ¡Viva
y sigamos avanzando con calma y con cordura. Sigue. Respetando la virtud y honor.
The New York Times editorial board seemed embarrassed for supporting the coup and its government.
The White House today admitted that U.S. officials held several meetings with Venezuelan opposition leaders in recent months to discuss the ouster of President Hugo Chavez, but insisted at every turn today that not once did they signal a military option was acceptable.
We explicitly told opposition leaders that the United States would not support a coup.
On Friday, it appears they did just that, embracing Chavez's successor at the same time U.S. allies in the region condemned what they clearly saw as a military coup. When Chavez was returned to power the very next day, the White House looked like it had sided with coup plotters over democracy. Some Democrats today called that deeply troubling.
I think it's incumbent upon the greatest democracy in the world to defend democratically elected governments.
I don't think that the United States had a very enlightened policy towards Venezuela specifically or Latin America generally throughout the Bush administration, but this particular incident was the worst possible decision the United States could have taken. It not only locked in eternal enmity from the Chavez administration, but it made it very difficult for anybody else in Latin America to like the United States.
He says that the coup that took place in his country was engineered by the United States, and some in his administration say that, in fact, you had something to do with it. What do you say when you hear that?
Well, I have to laugh because the coup, first of all, there was no coup. If there had been a coup, I think Mr. Chavez would have been removed. There was a four-month investigation by the State Department. There was absolutely no U.S. involvement in that action that Chavez calls a coup.
Yes, the United States was hosting people involved in the coup before it happened. There was involvement of U.S.-sponsored NGOs in training some of the people that were involved in the coup. And in the immediate aftermath of the coup, the United States government said that it was a resignation, not a coup, effectively recognizing the government that took office very briefly until President Chavez returned.
The coup failed, but just 8 months later, the management of the National Oil Company launched a strike with their workers and were joined by business owners who locked out their employees. The strike, once again supported by the private media, devastated the economy, causing a severe recession comparable to the worst years of the Great Depression in the U.S.
A general strike by opponents of the president, Hugo Chavez, forced the Supreme Court to stop its work today. The oil industry in Venezuela has all been shut down.
This attempt to topple Chavez failed as well. In support, the Cubans sent in 10,000 doctors and free medicines to establish clinics for the poor.
In a swap Chavez made with Fidel Castro, he offered Cuba cheap oil in exchange for some of Cuba's doctors, like Niuris Moreno. Some of these people, she says, have never seen a doctor before.
The stuff Chavez claims he's done, reduce poverty, was reduced much, much more under the prior leaders.
One of my colleagues in the State Department says that Chavez loves the poor people so much he's created millions of new ones.
After the government got control of the oil industry, the economy doubled in size over the next 6 years, with poverty reduced by half and extreme poverty by more than 70%.
Aquí se da todo. Sorgo, girasol, maíz, caraota, soya. Yo quiero ensayar la propiedad comunal que esta escalona. Por ejemplo, mira. Por ejemplo, un barrio de Boconoito. Barrio Boconoito. Es dueño, ese barrio a lo mejor tiene 100 familias, 500 personas. ¿Okay? Ese barrio es dueño de este potrero de 200 hectáreas. Ese potrero es del barrio, de una comuna, pues.
Chavez has a very poor human rights record.
The Bush administration has compared him to Hitler.
Human rights has become a new buzz phrase, much as freedom was during the Soviet era. But even here, political double standards exist. By comparison, our closest neighbor and ally in the region, Colombia, has a far worse human rights record than Venezuela. But because President Uribe is perceived as a friend to Washington in their war on drugs, they get a pass in the media that Chavez doesn't.
Chavez has made a point of appearing in public with the tyrants Washington loves to hate.
We have the ability to take him out, and I think the time has come that we exercise that ability. We don't need another $200 billion war to get rid of one, strong-armed dictator.
It seems to me from the few days I've been with you that you have you've grown a very thick skin to this, but at first you must have been shocked.
Me afectó en lo personal, me dolía la mentira y el irrespeto a un pueblo. Pero luego me di cuenta que es parte de un juego y que por más que yo haga, yo me puedo vestir de cura, con un copito de esos rojos aquí. Me van a seguir diciendo, tirano, los pueblos saben la verdad.
I understand Chavez's confrontational approach. After the coup, it started to feel a little bit more like war.
George W. Bush. You are a donkey, Mr. Bush.
Ayer estuvo el diablo aquí. En este mismo lugar huele a azufre todavía.
This is your desk. This is where you work.
Este es uno de mis sitios de trabajo preferidos.
Never seen such energy. Never. And then you told me you were going to come back here last night and work.
Sí, anoche trabajé, mira.
What time did you get to sleep last night?
Pues, como a las 3 de la mañana.
3 a.m. And did you work until 2 or 1?
Trabajando, leyendo mucho. Estoy obligado a estudiar mucho.
Do you have any
Tengo que estudiar.
fun?
Yo tengo que saber del
Do you have any fun? Do you ever read for pleasure?